I've been participating in Beaver Valley in a program called Alpha. Here at St. John Paul, we've been doing a program called The Search. And last weekend, we did a weekend retreat here at St. John and Paul. And it was on the Holy Spirit. And many Bible commentators and experts have looked into the Book of Wisdom as a real window into the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is sometimes of the Trinity, the one that kind of gets away sometimes hard to really be able to grasp and to take to heart and to develop a relationship with this person of the Holy Spirit. Perhaps Jesus is obviously a little bit easier because he's walking around, he talks, he preaches. The Father, there are these images of fatherhood in our lives and things, but the Holy Spirit seems to be one that maybe you pull out at Pentecost and at confirmation, and then from that point on, maybe it just takes a back seat to the rest. And so perhaps even reading the Book of Wisdom can help us get into seeing and understanding this person of the Holy Spirit. But one of the stories I loved about this Alpha retreat was this happened in Wales, I don't know how long ago, but it was kind of like a light airplane type of a thing where this guy was flying with a friend, and they were about 2,000 feet up, and this guy's name was Alan Robertson, and unfortunately the pilot had a heart attack and died. And so Alan was left in the airplane by himself, not knowing how to fly an airplane at 2,000 feet with his friend, who was the pilot, no longer living. And so he got into the pilot seat and figured out something about a radio. There was happened to be a pilot instructor up in the air flying somebody else around, and so they started to have radio contact. And this pilot instructor kind of came along his side out in the air and started to say, okay, grab the throttle and pull it back just slightly to a certain thing. And the guy's like, where's the throttle? It's like, I would imagine it's like, put your hands on the steering wheel, and you're like, well, wait, where's the steering wheel, right? And you've never driven before. And so then he's like, okay, read what the altimeter is. What's your speed? Okay, let's start slowing this thing down. Let's start going this down, drawing it down. And then he goes, I'm on the right here. I'm right next to you. Look out the window. And they say you could hear the guy's voice was panicking, like, are we going to die? He looked out and he goes, okay, yeah, I can see you. And it gave him a lot of peace. And the pilot's okay. And then he goes, are we going to die? He's like, no, we got this, the instructor. And so he said, I just want you to look off and to the right there. You see that big black tarmac? That's where we're going to land. And he said, just slowly pull back. And as the airplane started to go down, he started to tell him the instructions and just was back and forth. And finally, he landed, and he had no idea where the brakes were. And he's like, oh, the brakes are this is what you have to do. And he's like, I can't stop the airplane. He's like, just keep firm on the brakes, keep firm. Finally, and he's like, now how do you turn the thing off? He's like, do you see the key? Just turn the key off. That's it. That's all you got to do, you know? And so then the reflection goes, the Holy Spirit comes along our side to give us peace in the turmoil, but to also, and this is what I love about this, to go beyond what we think. This is what divine wisdom is. You see, at least for me, I'm still stuck in the back seat when God's like, no, I need you to start to pilot. And you're like, yeah, but God, I don't know how to pilot. And that's when the Holy Spirit comes along our side. But notice what the Holy Spirit doesn't do. Parachute into the airplane and man the airplane or pilot the airplane for this particular person. The Holy Spirit comes along our side. There's a difference. Maybe that's the difference between sometimes when we see somebody that we don't like what they're doing, we go down and wring their necks and say, just go do this. Can't you see? But the Holy Spirit looks at us and says, no, you see where the goal is? Heaven. We've got to start piloting our souls towards there. And how do we get to heaven? Just like you see in a guy like St. Martin of Tours or any of the saints. They went beyond what they could think. And they did things that they humanly couldn't do because they allowed the Holy Spirit to come along their side and pilot them to heights and to places that they could never imagine. So let us start imagining our life in the reality that the Holy Spirit imagines it. And and start to realize He's going to show you where the throttle is. He'll tell you how to pilot it. But that connection with the Holy Spirit is absolutely essential for all of us to achieve the final goal of life, which is to get to heaven. Because let's face it, we can't do it on our own. We need the Holy Spirit. So let us just take a moment and just ask in your own heart, come Holy Spirit, come along my side. Whatever I see as impossible, whatever I see as too daunting, just come along my side. And maybe just today to have on your lips and in your heart, come Holy Spirit.